Real estate agents, I'm going to show you in this video how to get a much better ROI on your marketing with one simple mindset shift that will fundamentally change how you present yourself to your leads, how you market yourself, and ultimately how you can get leads from being on the fence, maybe kind of ghosting you, to yes, I want to work with this person wholeheartedly. And the way we're going to do this is by making you the only choice. And so a quick example I'll give is, let's say if you walked into a grocery store and you were going in there for cookies, right? You walk in and you notice, oh my God, the entire grocery store, every aisle is filled with only Oreos. What kind of cookie are you walking away with? Obviously, you're walking away with Oreos because ultimately you only have the option of Oreos and you came in there for cookies, so you guess what? You're walking out with Oreos. And ultimately, we can use the same strategy to be the only option available to our leads. I'm going to walk through four different ways that you can start to utilize this from your social media content. So let's jump right into it. So, if you're the only choice, people will buy from you. People will work with you because ultimately you can only use the options available to them. And what's really important here is that available is based off of your perception, right? We can't work with an agent we don't know who exists, essentially. So if you, first of all, if you're not marketing yourself at all, you can't be surprised that you're not getting any business. Because ultimately, if nobody knows that you exist, they knows that you exist, and they can't work with you. So we need to make ourselves more known. And then after that, we need to understand how do we present ourselves as the only option for the client to actually want to work with in terms of buying or selling our home. So first and foremost, number one here is volume. Volume is a great and simple way for you to establish yourself as one of the fewer options in the field. Now, yes, there are a lot of agents out there, probably in every market, every agent watching this, who has other agents who are on social media, of course. Here's the thing though, most real estate agents will post the exact same stuff, which is some variation of I'm a top performer, work with me, or just sold, or just listed, or some sort of automated, pre-designed post that looks like every other post that another agent has. And the problem with this is that the algorithms are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. If you post the exact same, first of all, if you post the just listed stuff, nobody cares about that, but maybe other agents and the buyer or seller that you're working with, right? Or just sold or whatever it might be, right? If you put out this piece of content and you say, "Oh yeah, this is just sold," and I guess I kind of have to make this a house, don't I? But if you say, oh yeah, this house was just sold, I'm so happy to work with Dave and Betty on selling their first home, and they're so excited and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be interesting to basically no one, right? I'm just trying to think of how to like visually write this. Because ultimately, what is the value of somebody seeing that a house just sold? There is no value again unless you're another agent in the market and you're kind of just trying to keep tabs on this real estate, you as a real estate agent. And even then, most people don't care. And that's why those posts get no engagement. You might get some other people in the brokerage or other agent friends of yours giving you a kudos or a pat in the back, but that's not the audience that we necessarily care to get in front of from a marketing perspective. And similarly, if you put out content that is like, there's some pretty good looking like videos that are like these pre-designed posts that are essentially like some sort of visual with some kind of graphics or a walkthrough of a nice like model home or something like that. And you have these different posts that are all kind of basically doing the same thing. The problem here is that it can be a little bit more engaging, and you might even get some views here. But ultimately, what are you getting in front of? You're getting in front of people who want to see more things about houses. So better than the first one, but you're still only getting in front of things, videos that people want to see about houses, about real estate, like art maybe, and basically just these nice looking videos that have nothing to do with working with you as an actual real estate agent. So when we talk about volume, we can't just have the volume of posts just by ticking a box and saying, oh, I posted 3 times today, that's amazing. Ultimately, we need volume of content that showcases the most important differentiator that we have, which is ourselves. Nobody has your face. And if you are an identical twin and your twin works in the real estate industry, well, then sorry, you have one person as competition. But if you make a video about yourself, talking about you slash your experience, your stories, and your perspective, nobody else can touch that. So if you have a high volume of content that talks about the thing that's most important, which is your singular experience, your stories, your perspective on the market, and how buyers or sellers can see the best result for what they're looking to accomplish, then that is ultimately how you get ahead. But you can't do that unless you have enough volume. Because ultimately, these algorithms are going to use data to get you in front of more people. And here's the cool thing, there's a lot of people who are totally interested in hearing your perspective and hearing about you and understanding more about what you have to say. But you have to give them the opportunity, and you have to have enough volume out there that can get in front of people, that can get in front of their timeline. Because even the people who are interested in hearing from you, you still have to get through, the clips from the Oscars or movie clips or famous musician like music videos or memes or their friends and family. You have to get through all of this noise that is more relevant to them, and to establish a connection you need volume in order to do that. Basically, let's say there's a target and you have a machine gun and you have one bullet, meaning you have one post that month. It might be hard to hit that target, right? But if you have 100 posts, if you have 100 bullets, it's going to be much easier to hit that mark just once. And once is all we need to start the ball rolling, because then it's significantly easier to show up in front of more people more often. So you need volume of the right kinds of content in order to give yourself the perspective to establish a unique agent that might be the only option for them. But even after that, we still need to differentiate ourselves even more. So next we go to depth. And depth essentially means that we need to go below the surface. We need to not just talk about the basic stuff, even if it's our own perspective and our own unique view. We need to go deeper than what most people will do. And what that does for us is it makes our brand more credible with the right folks. So again, don't go deep into a subject that's irrelevant. Go deep into what's only beneficial for buyers or sellers in your market. Because if you talk about exactly how, the lot size in this one particular town in your market, how that can dramatically increase it for these kinds of buyers, or how this school district has a better reputation than that school district, these things are only appealing to people who are buyers or sellers in your market. Nobody else really cares. So when you go deep on those subjects, what that does is it gives you more credibility with the right audience, and it kind of gets you away from the other people. And why that's so important is because let's say that you have an audience, and this is different from having followers, because followers aren't guaranteed to see your views. So when we talk about an audience, we just mean the folks who are seeing your content, because those could be followers or maybe not ultimately. But let's say, you go really deep on a subject here, and you have, your audience is really, really narrow, and you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. That's going to basically get away all the other kinds of people who are not actually interested in that stuff. And ultimately what that means is that your audience, not your following, your audience is going to be very, very niche specific. And what that does is it makes it more likely you're going to get in front of more people like that. If you've ever heard of a lookalike audience before, it's kind of the same thing. The algorithms know what people to serve your content to with a high degree of accuracy, because we share different demographics and psychographics with other people. And if I'm really interested in, let's say, a video game like Grand Theft Auto, and another person's really interested in a video game like Grand Theft Auto, and that person's also interested in the video game like Halo, and the algorithms understand that I share similarities, they might be more likely to recommend Halo to me, a video or a post about Halo, because of the fact that we already share similarities. So if your audience is very hyper focused because you went deep on your content, that's only relevant to the right kind of target audience for you, ideally buyers or sellers in your market, what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that your content is more likely to get in front of a newer audience that is similar to your existing audience. And so the other side of that token is, let's say you talk about 800 different things. Well, you're kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. And here's the problem: there are so many creators out there. If you're a master of none, you're basically non-existent, because if you talk about 800 different things, you're not really going to get deep into either one of those, because there's always going to be somebody who's deeper in that subject, who is talking more in depth about it, who has better insights on it. Because ultimately, if you're focused on one subject and somebody's focused on five subjects, you are infinitely more likely to get in front of the audience for that one subject than the other person who's splitting their attention, splitting their effort, splitting their content among a bunch of different things. It really comes down honestly to volume again, because if you're making 10 posts and they're all about one subject for one audience, that means that you're getting 10, a volume of 10. Whereas if one person's making five different types of videos, five different types of subjects, and they make 10 videos, that might be only two videos per subject. So ultimately, when they do this, they only really get in front of a weaker audience, and it makes it harder to be recommended to the right kinds of folks. So depth is highly important here. Now, I know you're at this point, you're probably saying, cool, cool, this is like an algorithm video. This isn't really talking about how I can differentiate myself, but stick with me, because I promise you, this is going to be an insightful way to look at your content creation, and probably in a way that you haven't done it already. Just a guess from the hundreds of agents that I speak to on a monthly basis. So, niche. Um, Obviously, if you're talking about a niche like this example here, with the one person doubling down and focusing deep on one subject, you're going to be able to eliminate more agents from your pool. So let's say you have 1,000 agents in your market, right? That might be actually really low for a lot of markets out there. Well, if you have 1,000 agents in your market, that's 1,000 people you're competing with. Well, what if instead we brand ourselves as, a vegan agent? Obviously only do this if you're actually vegan. But well, then suddenly, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Now we're actually taking, okay, now actually we're marketing ourselves in a much smaller pond, which means we can be a much bigger fish relatively. And so maybe now there's actually, out of that 1,000, maybe there's only 100 people. And then maybe we say, oh, well, I'm actually a vegan agent who also is really into surfing. And this might seem kind of irrelevant to real estate, but the point of this is that if you start to differentiate yourself and you make your brand relative to this while still staying relevant to your audience and what they're interested in, now suddenly on one end of the spectrum, you're getting in front of a very niche group, which is getting you deeper and eliminating competition of the other agents who can't really stay focused on one subject. So it gets you in front of the overall buyer or seller market better. But then on top of that, too, you're branding yourself with an identity. Something a lot of agents don't really do. A lot of agents just post that they're amazing, or that they just sold, or just, listed or whatever. And they don't actually have any single thing in there that somebody would be able to look at them and differentiate them from another agent down the street. So if you can differentiate yourself, what you do is you take that 1,000 agent pool and you make it smaller, because now you're not competing with every agent in the world. You're competing with other agents who have the same amount of likability and the same amount of personality as you. And specifically, you're probably going to find people who are maybe also vegans or also into surfing, which makes it more likely that you're going to end up working with them just because you share some similarities. People like to work with folks who represent their values. They don't like to work with people who they feel ostracized from, in a lot of ways. So these things are just ways that you can make your content that helps you to stand out and eliminates all the other competition, which ultimately makes it closer to being the only option available to someone. Now, because you actually have differentiation here and you're not just representing the same basic stuff that most agents in your market are, you've really taken your audience size, or at least the competition in your market, down dramatically. So let's say, if you're actually in a market where there's 1,000 agents, but you're starting to actually post a high volume of content, well, a lot of those agents aren't doing anything in terms of their social media content. So it doesn't really matter that they're there, because to the audience, they're not really visible. So we'll be generous and we'll say half of the people are actually posting, to a level that actually makes it them relevant, and people can view them. Well, then you also need to be talking about content that actually breaks through the noise. So content that actually gets on someone's feeds, that's more interesting and more valuable to them than what their friends or family or their favorite celebrity is posting. And then suddenly, let's drop that down even farther. And I think this is pretty realistic, that only 20% of people are probably posting enough volume with enough depth to actually build a notable break in the audience so that the audience would actually know that they even exist and remember their content or see them frequently. Well, then suddenly, okay, let's focus on our niche. Well, now I'm going to start to focus in on a specific niche, either in the real estate market or differentiation of myself as a brand to get myself in front of more folks who are actually interested in working with me, not just the people who are out there posting all the time, who, again, are just putting their stuff out there to essentially market themselves as the best agent in the world. But more realistically, how can I be personalized? How can I make videos instead of just static image posts that can show my personality and that can give a little bit more to my audience so that they actually have a chance to know, like, and trust me? Well, then, let's say you get in front of only around 10 people, and ultimately you've taken an audience or a competition size, I should say, of 1,000 agents, and you've broken it down into really you're only one of 10 in this situation, which is a much better playing field to be in from a social media perspective, and also just from a marketing perspective. You can compete one against 10. You can't compete one against 1,000 at least and expect to get any sort of great result. So if you make volume content that you make enough of it in order to give yourself a chance in the algorithms to show up for people, and you go deep enough into a particular subject that is an actual pain point or that has value to your prospective audience, then you can start to get in front of a lot more people. And if you niche down and you differentiate yourself as much as possible, these are different ways that you can take that 1,000 audience or 1,000 agent competition size and ultimately make it much more manageable so that you actually have a chance here to stand out on social media. Now, for a bonus, I want to talk about a really smart social media strategy that really can actually extend outside of socials. But this is how you can ultimately differentiate yourself in a way that is so beneficial to an audience, to prospective buyers or sellers, that you can really have an easy lead gen process. And you can do this with like paid ads, or you can just do this organically. And because the offer is so good, I really feel like it can work either way. So number one is that you advertise your services, and specifically a free service. So whether that's DMing people, or that is posting organically with enough volume there, or that's running an ad that's targeting folks in your market, I want you to advertise a free service of some sort. And the better this is, the more it feels like you should be charging people for this, the more on the right tracks you are. So I mean, yes, you could do something like a downloadable or something like that, but ideally, do something that actually takes time. Maybe if you are looking for a seller, say, hey, I'll walk through your house. I'll give you a realtor inspection. I mean, if you're a licensed inspector, that's even better. But you can say, I'll give you an inspection that any real estate agent, any professional agent could give you without having to work with me. Like, I'm not your agent yet. But let me just go through and I'll tell you all the things that are good or things that you can work on before you list your home. And I'll even actually draw up some comparables so that you have a really good idea of what your home could be worth. You don't have to sign anything for me to do this. Let me just do this as a favor to you. No questions asked, no charge, nothing. I'll just do this. When's the best time for you? Saturday, Sunday? I'll work around your schedule. That's a lot of work that a lot of agents don't want to do. And if you're saying, hey, I don't want to do that or I don't have time for that, that's totally cool. But this is a great strategy because of people like you who don't want to do those things. So just keep that in mind. If you're really hungry for more sales, you can advertise your services for free. Now, what's cool about this is that by being very generous there. And if there's other people doing this already, go a step farther. Go like, well, hey, I'll be at your beck and call. Like, if you want to look at the MLS at any time, I'll share with you the link. If you want to go like tour homes, I'll go tour homes with you and give you an unbiased perspective. Again, you don't have to work with me. I'll give you my time, my expertise, so that you can even, and this is a really cool one, you could say, hey, if you want to do a for sale by owner and you just want to sell this yourself without a commission, I'll do all the guesswork out of there so that you don't have to feel like you're going in blind, not being a real estate expert, and I'll set you up for success. And now that's a little risky because you might have people who take you up on that. But 100% what you won't have is other agents in your market doing that. And that is differentiation. That is helping you stand out as an agent. So you become the only agent doing this. And what's really cool is that you can learn more about the prospect. And this is a great way to do it because people want you to help them out, of course, but they know on a sales call. I had a sales call the other day with somebody who they were trying to pitch me on a service, and they said, hey man, I know everything about your business. I know like all these things. I know we could help you out with this. I know this is perfect for your business. And I'm like, dude, we've been talking for 40 minutes. Like there's no way you really know this stuff about me. And it comes off as very fake, which is unfortunate because the guy was a great salesperson other than that. But if you actually are there walking through a property with someone, if you're there showing them properties, if you're there helping them all these steps along the way, they will actually know, yeah, John knows what he's talking about. He knows what I'm interested in because we've met with him 3 or 4 times. And he's shown himself to be super smart. He's shown himself to be super helpful. And I've asked him questions. And so he knows what I'm looking for, objectively. So not only are you the only agent offering to help them out for such a low price or really free, but you're also the only agent at this point who really knows what they're looking for because you already had an in by giving away your services for free. So you become the only agent who knows them, and ultimately, you can become the only agent that they trust. And what's really cool is that let's say you do this with the for sale by owner example, right? Well, if you can advertise this for free and get people to take you up on it, which you probably can, especially if you're advertising something as generous as like hey, if you're a for sale by owner, let me go in and I'll actually just do all the difficult work that professionals can give you that would make it so that you'd have a better transaction, and I'll do it for free. You don't have to give me a commission at all, right? What's really cool about this is that uh, yes, you might have people who take you up on that, and so let's say half the time people say, okay, I'll do that and I'm going to get it for free. I'm not going to have to pay a commission. And they go through the whole process and you deliver a great service and they don't give you any commission. I would doubt that more than 50% of people wouldn't do anything like that. Wouldn't give you any sort of compensation for all of that hard work. But even if it is 50%, then let's say you're only out of every 2 people that you help do this with, you're only going to see a commission on 50% of it. That might seem like a terrible bargain. But here's what's really interesting. Most agents spend anywhere from 80 to 90% of their time marketing, trying to get more listings. Most people are not having. Most agents make like $30,000 to $40,000 a year in the U.S. So they're not working with a lot of properties per year. They're working with like 1 or 2 properties every few months, and so they're spending a lot of their time marketing or doing other things that isn't helping them get more business. So if you give up your time for free, but what you're really doing is you're taking away from that 90 and 80% budget, and let's say you only have to spend 50 or 40 or even 30% on marketing because you have such a great offer that gets you to talk with prospects in a more natural way. Well, then, yeah, you might be spending more time doing all this free work, but really all it's doing is it's taking it out of the budget of marketing that you either are spending and aren't getting a great return, or that you're not even doing, and so you need to be doing more work anyway. Um, and so now it's like, yeah, I might only be getting a commission on 50% of the folks I help in this fictitious example here. But what's really cool is that I don't have hardly any advertising costs, and I'm taking time that I would already be spending trying to advertise and post content and stuff like that, and I'm just putting it instead down the pipeline, down the funnel farther, instead of just yelling at the top of rooftops saying, "Hey, let me help you as a real estate agent." You're just getting more time in the middle of the funnel and getting in front of folks who actually are looking to buy or sell. You don't have to chase the leads as much. You don't have to look and try to guess where your next stuff is coming from because you're already getting in front of people who are interested in buying or selling. They're looking to move forward because that's why your services are helpful in the first place. And then on top of that, you're in a completely unfair advantage to other agents because you're able to do all these things for them for free, and nobody else knows them as well as you do. And what's really cool is even outside of the for sale by owner example, you're going to have an unfair advantage by being the only person that is offering such a great benefit, the only person that is learning more about the prospect and spending time with them, the only one who really knows their interests and how to help them. And ultimately, that leaves you as being the only agent that they trust. So ultimately, if somebody is making the biggest financial decision or likely the biggest financial decision of their life by buying or selling their home, and they know they need to work with an agent that they know, like, and trust, and you're the only agent then they trust, well, then suddenly you are the only option available to them. Hope that was helpful.